This is the Media Police Post from the Fort Hall School of Government. In this show, we police the state of truth in the Republic. And because the truth is communicated to us by journalists and analysts, we have made it our civic duty to put it to the test. We advance from two confirmed truths about the media. One, and in the words of Roger Stone, the media is either lazy or evil, and for the most part, it is both evil and lazy. That is why their truth must be put to a test. Two, another confirmed truth is that journalism is verified gossip. In fact, what is presented to us as news analysis is gossip that has been verified by journalists. This gossip has to be ground-truthed. We will monitor columnists, we will assess the state of truth in what they submit to the Republic, and we will pass verdict on what is true and what is not. For the record, we are not journalists, we are thinkers. We are not lazy or evil, and we do not verify gossip. What we give you is the truth that sets you free. On today's show, we will discuss either our favorite columns of last week or columns which reflect unformed and uninformed opinions, and columns that also made you stupid. These are columns that A, fell into the cognitive trap of we see things as we are, not as they are, or that are based on conjuncture, history, and lastly, ones that smack of envelope journalism. Welcome, Ms. K and CS. What are we looking at today?
Thank you. This week, former Chief Justice Dr. Willie Mutunga published some half-baked thoughts in a impoverished gutter press called The Elephant. By the way, they are asking for donations and we advise Kenyans not to donate. Remember what happened when Bishop Kanyari asked Kenyans to panda mbegu ya 310? Msipande mbegu. Back to Dr. Mutunga. He sends a memo to the Kenyan middle class asking them to be the vanguards of the 2010 Constitution. And because he called us the middle class and called us to action, we want to give him a response. No, we want to de-educate him on revolutions and the middle class. Kindly indulge us. 1, do we have a middle class in Kenya capable of leading the revolution? And if we were to take a picture of this middle class, what would it look like? Our beloved doctor diagnoses Kenya as having a middle class. The only problem is that he uses an outdated version of Marxism from the 1970s. Last we checked, good doctor, this is the 21st century. Welcome to Marxism 7.0. But even if we were to use Marxism version 1.0, the one Dr. Mutunga is familiar with, we come to the conclusion that there is no middle class in Kenya. Consider why. Karl Marx distinguishes between a class and a social category. A class is brought together by a stream of consciousness. A social category, on the other hand, has either no consciousness or a false consciousness. Marx further distinguishes between a class in itself and a class for itself. A class in itself has no consciousness. It exists as a sack of potatoes, a chaotic aggregate. But a class for itself has a stream of consciousness and a modicum of civic competence. What you are calling the middle class in Kenya, good doctor, is a social category, a chaotic aggregate, a sack of potatoes without a stream of consciousness. And so we ask you, how can a sack of potatoes lead the revolution? How can a chaotic aggregate become the vanguard of the 2010 Constitution? 2, Dr. Mutunga suffers from a political disorder known as cognitive closure. This is the same disorder that the Israeli general Eli Zera suffered from when he took Israel to the Yom Kippur War. Leaders who suffer from this disease will tell you, I have made up my mind. Don't confuse me with the facts. The good doctor has made up his mind. BBI should not confuse him with the facts. He has made up his mind that the 2010 Constitution is good. But when you ask him, why is it good? He says it is good because it is not bad. That is why his argument is a patchwork of ideological verbiage marinated in conjecture history. Lastly, Dr. Mutunga tells us that the middle class has never led a revolution. Then he goes ahead and asks this middle class to lead the revolution. We do not want to qualify this as a contradiction. This is nothing but selective disinformation, and that is why he confuses himself. Ultimately, this article reaffirms Dr. Mutunga's decision to seek early retirement. It made me feel stupid, and we recommend that you don't read it. And remember, usipande mbegu ya 310 kwa ile ka website.
Oh, Miss K, harsh words there. I feel when I read this article, I kept feeling like he's making it seem like BBI is going to undo all the good things that are there in the 2010 Constitution.
I know.
Yet this is just but an amendment.
And it doesn't touch the Bill of Rights, which he elaborates on for quite a while.
And he says nothing about BBI and what's in it. You would at least expect a comparative analysis and a fair judgment from former Chief Justice.
Yep.
This week, I focus on an article that featured in yesterday's Sunday Standard. It was titled, ODM MPs Tough Terms to Support DP Impeachment. The article informs us that 126 MPs have already appended signatures to the proposed impeachment motion. 126 is more than the required 1/3 of MPs stipulated in Article 145 to bring a motion on the floor of Parliament. The article highlights that ODM MPs are keen to ensure that if they do participate in this motion, then it must succeed. Several grounds of impeachment have been identified. We are also informed by the article. But however our MPs articulate those specific grounds, what we must be mindful of is that an impeachment process is a political process. It is not the result of a strictly judicial process, like a trial in a court of law. If it was, then the Constitution or an Act of Parliament would also need to address issues such as punishment through a prison sentence, or fines, or both. But it doesn't. That is why the impeachment of former Governor Sonko, for instance, was a completely separate process from the current party after party that is engaged in with the courts and our prisons. This is why Governor Waitito, even after being impeached, is living like a kawaida citizen in contrast. Impeachment is a process that plays out in the theater of politics and the arena of Parliament. It is our elected representatives that hold him to account, not judges. It is a political trial. But we also invite you not to misunderstand us. Saying it is political does not mean that it is about popularity. It rises above populism, reaching for a higher ideal, and that is to ask our members of Parliament to question whether the Deputy President has violated principles that threaten the integrity of the presidency. The standards and parameters that govern the impeachment process are largely set out in our Constitution. I want to focus on two articles of the Constitution. Article 145 sets a requirement that 2/3 of the members of Parliament are needed to uphold the impeachment motion. Secondly, Article 150 deals with the grounds for the removal of the Deputy President. For instance, it's stipulated in Article 145 1b that number one, on the grounds of gross violation of provision of the Constitution or any other law, the DP can be impeached. Where there are serious reasons to believe that the DP has committed a crime under national or international law, the DP can be impeached. Or for gross misconduct, the DP can be impeached. Any one of these grounds will need to be addressed with some measure of proof as to how far the DP has fallen short of the glory of the presidency. Even so, what we do notice is that the framing of Article 150 is quite broad. The Katiba does not offer a definition for gross violation or gross misconduct. And as to the criminal culpability of the DP, either under national or international law, The Constitution only requires that there are reasons to believe that the DP has committed a crime. This is arguably why, even in the Sonko and YT2 impeachment, Parliament did not engage in painstakingly combing through all the evidence. The point being that if there are enough questions about the character of the office holder, if there is sufficient reason to believe that the person to whom the people have delegated their sovereign will no longer warrants the trust and confidence they had when they issued the person the mandate to govern, then the delegated sovereign will of the people must be withdrawn. It is a matter of national security and political stability that the highest offices in the land are sacrosanct and that the integrity of those offices are safeguarded. If, however, you have a DP that is insubordinate and openly defying the president, then that is both untenable and unsustainable. If you have a deputy president that is promoting divisions and stoking political tensions along class lines and neglecting the consequences even when cars are being burned and rallies are being stoned, and his name is being chanted at funerals while MPs are throwing fists at each other, then this is unacceptable when the presidency has a primary constitutional duty to promote national unity. This tendency to incitement is a gross violation of Article 131 of the Constitution. If the office of the Deputy President at Harambee House Annex has been used as a marketplace to negotiate deals of illegal black market weapons with shadowy Eastern Europeans, ushered in by a former cabinet secretary who was himself accused of human trafficking and who is a political ally of the DP, then gross misconduct sounds just about right. These are just a few examples, and we can be sure the list can be long, stretching from here to Timbuktu.
Wow. And tomorrow I hear there's a PG meeting, a parliamentary group meeting that is being called. So we'll see if heads will indeed roll.
Heads must roll because you must have the parliament in order, like chips on a block, if you're going to impeach the deputy president for gross misconduct
Consider
and
that
violation.
This week we want to incite Parliament. We want to send a memo to the members of the National Assembly and Senate. As you reopen, you must impeach William Ruto. And yes, you can do it. Think about it. If you take away the position of Deputy President from William Ruto, there will be no William Ruto. He amounts to nothing because he will not be a hustler or a dynasty. He will become a sheer commoner. If you take it away from him, there will be no Karen to dish out wheelbarrows. In fact, he will be a wheelbarrow without a wheel, non-functional. Without money, the hustlers will run away from him one by one. What is our point? Niccolo Machiavelli taught us that you must not do your opponent a small injury. If you must injure your enemy, the injury must be so severe that you need not fear his vengeance. You cannot injure him in small installments. If you injure him bit by bit, he will heal and develop antibodies. And this is what happened to William Ruto. You have been injuring him small. Each time you injure him, he licks his wounds and comes back stronger. But do you have the numbers to impeach him? Let us begin with Ayub Savula's impeachment motion, the one CS mentioned, where 126 MPs have already signed this impeachment petition. With this motion, if it is introduced in Parliament, you only need a third of its members, and he already has that. He has 116 MPs. The importance of introducing this motion, however, is that it will acquire a life of its own. It will create a disease called political contagion. And this is a situation where if one action is taken and it appears successful, everyone else mimics it. If Savula's motion appears successful, it will create a contagion or a political epidemic in Parliament. And this is what Mudavadi intends to ride on to become president. Dear members of Parliament, just do it. For the most part, an opponent is not half as strong as they think they are. And maybe Ruto has the feet of clay, and a small Savula shower in Parliament is likely to melt his feet away. And who knows? And as for the Gamma MPs who are asking Uhuru to give them a sign, we want to tell them it is better to apologize than to seek permission if the cause is right. So stop asking Uhuru for a sign. And now I'll end with a story. Once upon a time, a hyena was looking for food. Then it came across a tender calf tied to a tree. Happy about the provisions of the good Lord, it decided not to eat the calf first. It decided to eat the rope that tied the calf to the tree as an appetizer. The idea was to eat the rope first and then eat the calf at the end of the rope later. But after eating the rope, the calf escaped. And here is the lesson for Parliament. If you find a calf, eat it before you eat the rope. 2. Do not be distracted by the rope. Threatening RUTO with impeachment is the same thing as eating the rope first. Don't do it. It's very bad. Right, guys?
I completely agree. If you're gonna do it, you better do it. Don't threaten it, then not do it, because you'll come back stronger.
Just do it.
So thank you for joining us on the Media Police Post. Columnists, join us next week. We're putting you on notice.